In this video series, we continue to learn how to turn AI 3D model into game-ready model. And in this episode, we're gonna do retopology or mesh optimization. We will continue using Blender because it's open source, but for retopology, we're going to use two Blender plugins, most popular one. So the first one will be Quad Remesher. It has paid version, but it's also available as free trial, but it is probably the best one. There are completely free alternatives, but I really recommend this one because it's really good at what it does. Another one will be Retopoflow, extremely popular plugin that really helps to do retopology as easy as it can be. All the links will be in the description as usual. And for those who don't know how to install any plugins, it's very simple. So you usually need to get the zip archive. So for example, here we go to Retopo GitHub, we go to releases, we press here, we just need to download that zip archive. Now, when we go back to Blender, you go to edit, preferences, in add-ons, you're gonna find this drop down and find install from disk. So you need to go there and select that zip file. After a while, it will be automatically installed and you'll see something like this. In some cases, it might be not activated, but just press this and it will be activated and you're gonna be able to find it where it belongs. Now, different add-ons have different placement in the UI, so don't get lost, I'll explain about them. Before we start, let's understand why we do mesh optimization in first place. There are four main reasons we need to know. The first reason is optimization, so we can run it in different engines, use it for games we develop for mobile devices, speed up the rendering and stuff. The second one is animation and rigging, and here retopology actually goes to the next level. It's not just optimized mesh, it is correct mesh, so we can animate everything right, so hands and fingers and stuff are moving as they should move. And to make it really good, we need to take care about the mesh topology. That's why we say retopology. Another reason is that we want to be able to unwrap the model and paint it. You can theoretically unwrap any model with any amount of polygons. That will be a nightmare, and you will never be able to fix all the artifacts on the texture and so, not to say how messy it will look. And the first reason, if you're gonna sell it or you will reuse it anytime later, it is way easier to continue working with optimized model. Okay, now when we know the reasons, let's go back to our model that we created in a previous video. Also, I already explained basic controls of the camera and some stuff that we will using in these tutorials. You can always refer to the previous episode. Let's take a look on our Dino. Let's understand what do we need to achieve here. So first of all, after sculpting this model is almost more than 2 million triangles, which is a lot. And if I go to edit mode to take a look on the polygons, you can see how much there are them. That's definitely the first thing we need to achieve here is optimization itself. But because we want to paint it later and animate and rig, then we also need to care about topology. When we say topology, it means that there must be correct loops, so when we animating and want to bend something, it actually bends correctly without some weird look and stuff. For that purposes, we need to do some nice loops around areas we want to move and animate, such as legs, arms and fingers, and a tail as well. Guys, I really appreciate your support on the previous episode, so I decided to continue this video series. When this video get 200 likes, I'll go record next episode. Really appreciate your support. Okay, so let's get started with Quad Remesher. I assume you already installed it. You will be able to find it here in the right menu. So my idea is to create some low poly asset with really nice topology, and we're gonna use the following settings. We'll set up the quad count to 4000 and adaptive size to 50%. You can also see all the settings. We also use symmetry, so our topology is symmetric. Symmetry worked from the word origin, similar way that we used it before. Okay, let's press remesh and let's wait. All right, so here we got another mesh. We can press tab to go inside the edit mode and we can examine the geometry. From what we can see, it's not actually bad, but we can see that on some areas it's not perfect. Like for example, you can see around the eye, the topology is not a loop, so it's not a complete circle, connected circle, which will probably make it difficult to animate. Although if it's a static model, that's actually a good one. But we'll do a perfect loop and I'll show you how to do that. Also, you can see on nose, it is a little bit messy, so we'll probably do need to rework it slightly. So just so you understand, we may want to add more density here to show the shape accurately. We will not do animation for mouse, but we'll need to make the mouse more accurate. Also, I don't really like the transitions on the spikes because you can see the geometry is more curvy and there's not enough polygons covering it. So basically the logic is very simple. Imagine you have a nice slope, and if you want to make it prominent and accurate on any curvature, you need like more polygons, right? I mean, if you just drop one polygon like this, so it will actually be very noticeable even like with any shading. So the idea is that in some important details, we just want to add more dense geometry that will actually show exactly how it will work. We'll not only optimize the model, but also keep it look very nice. Okay, we might also review all the spikes on the back. The hands are quite nice, but you can see there's not perfect transition with the polygons. I'll show you how you can do that even better, so you will not face any difficulties when you start rig and animate the model. The first thing we will do, we'll go to edit mode and we'll need to switch to wireframe renderings here on top. Then we'll need to switch to the polygon mode, which is here. We're gonna press B on a keyboard or just select box selection mode and try to select a half. We'll mirror the model as before, so we don't need to retopology it twice because the model is exactly the same on both sides. Then we press X and we select delete faces. If you accidentally delete something, just press Ctrl Z, go back with Ctrl press on the polygons that are not selected properly and delete it again. Alright, so now it looks like everything is fine, just amazing. As you might remember, we already created eyes and teeth from geometry, so we don't really need to optimize them, they already optimized. We'll just hide them and keep for later. Okay, now we have perfect base. We'll press tab to go back to object mode and let's regroup the objects here a little bit. So let's put everything back to sculpt. Let's create a collection. Right mouse button on sync collection, create new collection. Let's drop our new file and the old high poly model. Let's call it base high, and another one we'll call base low. And for the rest objects, let's just hide them for a while. You can also hide the whole collection, it will not distract us. Now, one important thing is that you need to understand your goals. If your only goal is to optimize it and paint it, you don't really need to care a lot about the topology as we will do in the video. Maybe the result from Quad Remesher is already enough and you can actually skip it and go to the next episode. Alternatively, for just optimization, there are Tripo and Hunyon, which provides with AI topology. I showed how to use it in one video, and again, if only goal is optimization, you can easily use them. But it is always cool to know how to adjust the mesh until perfect condition so you can make nice UV and be proud of it. So to enter Retopology mode, you're gonna need to follow exact steps. So first, press on the high poly mesh and make sure there are no modifiers. So you remember sometimes we can add modifiers such as when we press right mouse button shade out a smooth, and it might result in the modifier like this. It is important before we entering into Retopoflow, we'll need to either apply it, either remove. If that's a mirror or smoothing, you can easily apply it and that will do the job. So on my measures, I already applied all of them. So we need to select it, then by holding Ctrl, press on the base slow, and you're gonna have something like this, heavy orange and one light orange. Then we're gonna press on Retopoflow tab on top and we'll press edit active. If you did everything correct, you're gonna wait a little bit and it will actually prepare a special mode where we're gonna do retopology. Alright, so we are inside and let's take a look around. So basically, we do have some tools on the left top side. We also have some options, and what's more important, we have our mesh available with the reference high poly mesh. all mouse and keys that were pressed, so you always can repeat exactly. Mostly I'll using the same camera movement and stuff, but here we'll add a little bit more hotkeys to navigate through tools. After we look around, let's actually start with one spike, and I'll show you example how we'll improve the quality here. So first we'll be using polypen, and with shift we can select some polygons and we'll try to do a nice loop. So let's first select them with shift and then press X on the keyboard and delete faces. Alright, so now faces are deleted and we'll need to replace them. Sometimes when it's difficult to use the camera and you need to zoom to a specific area, press on the vertex and press dot on the numpad. It will actually zoom camera closer to that vertex or the polygon, and you'll be able to rotate around it easily. Here's the first cool thing about Retopoflow is that whenever we'll be dragging dots, it will always be attached to the surface. So as you can see, whenever I'm dragging it, it always attached to the closest surface, which is amazing because when we do retopology, we are not creating new object, we're creating the same with better topology. And to be able to bake some normal maps and color maps and some details from high poly to low poly, they must follow shape of each other. And Retopoflow add-on actually takes care about that, make our life easier. Now move some dots. What I want to do is I will just make them rounded and I will just simply connect one to another. You can also drag the edge to another edge. Now for movement, I use G on the keyboard, and while holding G, you will be able to actually move the vertices. All right. So just press G and move it like where you need. You can also press on some edges and I'll show you. So let's say here, let's select an edge, and yeah, you see it actually align with another edge. So as simple as it can be, we just need to make nice loop around the spike. You also can use knife to basically cut some polygons. To do that, you can press K on the keyboard and you need to select the starting point, and then from that you'll be able to actually draw a line that will result in a cut. So here I press on the vertices, press key, boom, drag and drop, press enter, and here we go. Now we can go back to the polypen mode. So basically the whole process will be about using polypen and knife to draw the topology for our needs. So in this case, we're adding some loops or basically add some density around some spikes or some slopes where we want to keep some details and look them nice. The same thing actually goes for appendices that we want to animate, such as arms, fingers, and hands. So let's continue this one. Again, I'm pressing G, I'm moving either vertices, either I move edges, and this plugin actually helps me to connect things together. Now drag an edge. Okay. Now we don't really need to take care whole mesh to be quads. Sometimes you might actually add triangles when it suits. Also, you can add polygons by actually extending edge by G, and if you ended up like with a mouse in empty area, it will result adding a new polygon. Okay, so here we'll delete these polygons and let's add more polygons. Okay, now we also can use Ctrl plus R to add whole loop if it's suitable. So here you can see by holding a mouse, pressing Ctrl R, or you can alternatively use a tool called loop that will actually show you that you can add a loop, and when you press right mouse button, it will be added. When it's added, it will be selected, so you can actually move it with G a little bit up or down. Okay, so we added a loop. Let's continue connecting things. Here I want to remove the edge. Oh, something bad here. It was okay. Let's move it a little bit. Draw more polygons. Okay. And now let's connect it here. I think we'll basically connect these two dots, drag them a little bit closer, and let's connect them together. And here, because geometry is quite curvy, let's add one. Let's use knife to add one more edge. Yeah, you can see this area, the black area, you can see where geometry goes higher than the new topology. So it might be a tip for you to add or reduce polygons in these areas in order to get everything baked nicely. Okay, so it's a little bit messed it up. Let's drag that vertex back. Okay, and now it looks quite nice. It follows the shape and it is quite optimized. Here's the example of why we need to add more polygons on the slopes. So you can see that the original shape is rounded, but with new polygons, it might look quite flat. So if you don't like it, you can add more polygons here. You can use knife, add a polygon and move it there. It will be more rounded. I recommend to take a look at it from far and make sure you really need it. So for example, here I can actually leave it like that. It's definitely fine, and we'll also use some shading. Another very useful thing is the relax tool. So whenever we finish it, let's press relax. This tool basically adjusts the size of the polygons. If some are too big, some are too small, with the relax tool, instead of dragging each vertex, you can easily just paint it on top and see how nice it became. So the another thing is that in some areas that meant to be flat, we can actually reduce density. Where the shape is rounded or it's very curvy, we can add more polygons, and where it's more flat, we can actually reduce it, right? So here is an example, there's too much polygons in this area, and this is basically a flat area, and we are not going to animate anything here. First, let's fix a little bit on this spike. So here I was also continuing doing the same thing. You can see what logic I'm following when I'm doing that is I'm trying to give a decent amount of polygons, make sure they are not go one inside another, like in this example you can see, cut wherever it's needed, and ideally to do some loop based geometry in a way that around some appendices like these spikes or hands, we're gonna make loops. It might take a while to get acquainted with the tool, but trust me, this is extremely fun and easy process when you know how to use all these tools. Alright, so I just completed all the spikes, so you can take a look. Basically, it's not extremely perfect, and now let's actually talk about the eyes. We will do the eye, nose, and the mouse. Okay, so the problem with the eye is that it's not a loop, and if we'll try to animate it, animation just move the polygons, right? And as it is not a circle, and you can see it's basically a square, it will be hard to fold an eye if we want to make a blink animation, for example, with this sort of topology. If you Google what a topology is, you'll easily find something like this showing exactly that there are loops around the face, around the eyes, around the mouse, sometimes around the nose, and basically you can see that the arms, legs, and everything is about that. Again, the key thing here is the animation and rigging, because we want it to look nice. And with this topology, even low poly model looks really nice when animated. So we're gonna try to do a loop here instead of this generated quads. Try select them. We can use select tool. You can use shift and press on the polygons. You can alternatively try to use the box select. Holding shift, just selecting them by pressing left mouse button. Can press on the polygons. We will also remove where the brows are, and we'll press X and dissolve faces. Let's move mesh around a little bit far from the eye. We don't need to do everything as a loop, but the eye itself. So we're gonna use polystrip tool, and we can actually draw around. Okay, so you can see it actually created something like this, which is amazing. Go back to polypen. Let's connect them here, move a little bit around, and now let's adjust it so it actually go around the eye. Okay, I will go adjust the vertices so they go exactly around the eye. Okay, so here is what I actually get so far. I was just basically moving them around. It actually follows the shape is what most important. There are not crazy transition. Now we can extend it, because you can see there is a slope here, and we'll extend it carefully. So we'll need to add one more loop following this geometry. All right, let's do like that. We can also start connecting it to the main topology. Here you can drag the edges by G, and we can actually keep this logic all across the topology. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can see as easy as it can be. Just drag the vertex, connect it. Okay, so here we can move it a little bit around, so there is enough space for a loop Okay, like that. Here I think we can actually connect them. Let's connect this, and yeah, you see we actually followed the geometry, and here I don't think we need this another loop. We can start connecting dots here. Again, you can actually try make it like extremely perfect. You can learn about the right topology, but in my opinion, you really need to understand why you're doing that. If you are about to animate eyes and stuff, you need to sit down here and make it perfect. If you're creating a static model, you don't need to take care about each and every polygon and make it like perfect. My goal is to show you how it's done. It's not difficult, but to master it, it might take some time or at least few attempts. Okay, so here I already did some progress. Basically by connecting, you can see I connected this part a little bit and it's not much left. Let's keep going. I'm just connecting that loop to the outer geometry. Okay, sometimes you can use the relax to make sure like the polygons are equally distributed and the size is equally distributed. Let's continue the loop that we started. Connect edge. Here I think we will connect this one to 1. Yeah, we don't need more edges here. Okay, just move a little bit so it follows the loop that we started on the eye. And here again, like we don't need to continue a loop, but we'll need to connect them nicely. So connect it here. The geometry is curvy in this area, so we're gonna need to add some polygons there to follow the geometry. Okay, and let's just connect this dot, and basically that's it. Look how nice it looks. Now we do have a perfect loop here, which will allow us to do animation. Okay, we're gonna need to add one more inner loop because it might actually be seen through the eyeball on the animation, but we don't need to cover the whole thing because it will be covered by eyeball. Then we go to strokes and we draw a line and it'll actually add loop like that. Amazing. Okay, we'll do the same thing for the bottom. First select contour. Also, in situations like that, we can use patches because it feels like it's incomplete. You can play with this tool. It is clear logic what's happening here and we'll need just to follow it. So we'll select the bottom edges with the Control or Shift and press patches, and you can see like it will create a geometry like this. You can also use tool called Tweak when you need to move more than one vertex at a time. Don't forget to save your progress. So yeah, here is how we made an eye. This is an amazing eye. I also did some additional stuff around the eye just to reduce the polygons where they are not needed and make them more logical. Again, you can find a lot of reference. If you're not sure what you need to do around an eye or arm and stuff, you can find a lot of reference images across the internet. Just try to follow them. It's not that difficult. Try to play with the tools and it will help to speed up the process extremely. By this logic, we're gonna rework the nose. Here I removed all the polygons. I started to create a shape around it. There is a nose hole. We'll need to add more polygons inside so it looks accurate. Yeah, because this is a nose and it's quite prominent nose. It's a big nose, so we'll need to make sure that all details are preserved. So we'll just add a more density here in this way. Okay, and here I've finished it and look how it looks eventually. Look, nice nose. And again, what you can tell is like the density here is increased. Yes, because I wanted to preserve the shape exactly. Alright, we'll review the complete result in a minute, but when you completed everything, here's how we proceed. You can basically press tab on the keyboard and it will actually suggest to quit Retopoflow and you'll just need to press yes. We're gonna need wait a while. We'll need to exit edit mode to the object mode. Also, you can press tab again. Now we can hide base high model. Here is our base low poly. There will be a displace modificator that we can simply delete after retopology. Just press X. The shading doesn't look good. That's easy to fix. Press right button in object mode on the model and add smooth by angle. Set it to 180 degree and go to the mirror that we added or add it again and enable X. So you might see that we forgot something and our model is not exactly perfectly merged. To avoid that, before you go to the topology mode, you can go to edit mode, select those edges and mark whole edges that are splitting the geometry as a seam. In my case, it's shown red, but it basically will tell that this seam is fixed. It will not be affected. So you'll not be able to drag that one. It's not a problem. Let's first hide the mirror modifier. What we're gonna do is go to edit mode, holding Alt on the keyboard, press on the edge, and it will select the whole loop. Then we need to press a combination of keys, which will be S, X, and 0 on numpad, which will basically scale it by X to 0. Alternatively, you can do the same exact thing with this tool. Basically, you'll need to go here, find the X, and scale it to 0. Also, there will be a helper here. You can enter 0 here manually. It will basically straighten this line like that. You can see it's like a perfect line. Let's go back to the object mode, enable mirror, and as you can see, it looks amazing right now. We don't need to apply the mirror because we're going to do UV also, so we'll need it. But if you're only looking for a low poly model, you can apply the mirror, and here it is. You can also apply the smooth modifier. Okay, so let's summarize. Here is our geometry. So what we did, we created nice loops around the spikes here. So here how it looks finally. We have enough density to follow the shape accurately. We also did a nice loop around the eye. I did a nose, added some density, tried to make it as a loop. Also, I reworked a little bit the mouse. Here I basically relaxed density, so it looks like that. On the arms, I also reworked them a little bit, basically so each finger and all the appendices such as arm, finger are look like loops, so it's easy to animate. You can find many references like how to do that. The leg itself, you can also see it's quite a big loop around the leg here. So you can see, for example, like this loop, right? So it's like one big loop around the leg. Here it's even connected. This one will be perfectly enough for animation and rigging, as well as unwrapping and painting. And total amount of triangles is 8,800, which is amazing. In the next video, we're gonna talk about baking textures from high poly to low poly, unwrapping and texturing. Subscribe and like to not miss out the next video. See you.